I spent a little bit of time with Paul Unslave today on his
Oh,
cast.
did you? Oh, I
And
gotta watch that.
man, bro, listen, he is so close to what we've been screaming about.
So
He's
close, but he will not cross the border.
he doesn't have to cross it. He's standing right on the line. He's not
Yeah.
wrong. And we've seen that his system works. Yeah, so here's the link again. Anybody who wants to come in, I find that the lengths that these criminals go to jack us up and ruin our lives is just it's extraordinary when it would just be easier for them to observe the law of the land. It would be
Right.
less hard. They could focus on real criminals and putting people away that really need to be in prison. People that deserve to be in cages. Look, man, there are wild animals running our streets that need to be thrown in prison, but they're fucking with Hendry, who's an activist. Why? Because he insists on having his rights. They can't stand it.
No.
They'd rather let a slasher or an axe murderer run free and put Hendry in jail or Chris
Yeah.
or anybody else who's shining the light on their den of vipers, their pit of cockroaches and mold. Man, these people are disgusting, man, and I just can't stand them. And Hendry, and if I don't know who else is here, there's five. If Chris is here, man, I respect the shit out of you guys. I respect the shit out of you. But
Yeah, Hendry's another one who could really be a powerhouse, just like Chili. He's got
well,
the wit. He's got
he's got
the
the
balls.
charisma. He's
Yeah.
intelligent. He's well spoken. Look, like I said to you yesterday, or maybe it was the other day when I was talking to Jonesy. Man, look, a successful resistance is not unified. Okay, it's got different elements, and this element over
Absolutely.
here. This element over here is working on stand on your rights, stand for something, or get the fuck out of my country. Over here, we got Chili and his OTVO trifold crowd that have a point, and there's a place that he wants to get to, and he wants everybody to get there alive, and I respect that. And then we got Long Island Audit, who I don't really know what his fucking goal is, man, but he's got such a huge platform. I don't know what he's not doing anybody any favors, man, with that.
Now he's priming them to get hurt.
I respect the shit out of him, man. I respect the shit out of him. But
Yeah.
man, you got to stand for something. Hendry has this unique mix where he's trying to fuck with the lawyer law, but he's also standing on his rights, and that is, that's a hybrid. And I'm not.
Right.
Look, man, and Chris goes about it. Everybody goes about it a different way. We are all the resistance.
Yeah.
We have different things.
It takes multiple fronts, like you said, though.
Yeah, man. Well, it's not multiple fronts. We're using multiple tactics, and we're coming at them from different directions, man. Not
Right.
necessarily. Well, yeah, you could call it a front if you want to. Make no mistake, people. We are at war, but we don't have to go to open street combat.
Yeah, it's not that kind of war.
No, we don't have to do that, man. We're not there yet. Those strictures have not been met, as far as I'm concerned. But in my mind, and I've said this before on my live streams with you guys and with Kennedy and with Brick Jonesy, man, look, I don't want to even have to consider shooting other human beings because of
Oh, God forbid.
a costume that they wear. I don't want to do that because I'm a humanist, and we first, before we punish them, we have to edify them. We have to get them in line. I don't I don't know what FPS's mission is. I see it as, he's been under attack for years.
Terrible attack.
Right, by Jamie Knoll and his pigs. And we know Jamie Knoll is going to prison, and some of his pigs are going to prison too. And part of the reason that they're going to prison is because Chris made a bunch of noise. Yeah, man. Unless we make noise and we start trying to bring these people to account, no matter what way we do it, we have to do it where it's going to work. Saying what crime and reasonable articulable suspicion and all this other crap isn't going to do it. There are certain ways that we have to. You got to seal the deal with some complaints. Sworn written statements of criminal activity by such and such with such and such damages, and get it off to the prosecutor and the judge for some goddamn warrants. Period.
Yeah, if you're not on the offense with this stuff, you're just going to keep defending until they get a goal past you and you end up in a cage.
Right. That's exactly the case, man. That's exactly the case. Look, I know that we have some new people in the chat, and I'm just going to tell you guys that what auditors do and what citizens do who stand up for their rights, whether they're sovcits or everybody, they think they're sovcits or they're coming from Paul Unslaved's direction or Hendry's direction or Long Island audit, whoever you want to talk about, man. This shit is dangerous because the people that we're playing with are amoral state corporatists. They're statists and they're corporate fucking zombies, man. They are an illegal occupying army. Even our civil servants that do this shit, these prosecutors and these judges and the clerks that are complicit, those are all they're all enemy combatants, man. They hate us and they hate America. All right, man. Listen, I'm going to let you talk for a minute, man, and rest my voice. I'm sorry, man. I'm pissed off today. I'm fired the fuck up. This shit with Hendry, man, it makes me wish I could just get in the car and go down there, because I'm not far.
Yeah,
I'm close. I'm real close, and I can.
Oh, really?
Indiana too, but
I thought you were way up in the Northeast there.
No, I'm not. That's Kennedy is up northeast. But you know what, man?
No, he's Northwest.
Yeah, he's right. You said northeast. I'm sorry. Like I said, man, I'm fired up. I'm angry as shit about this thing with Hendry, man. But anyway, man, go ahead. Anybody else wants to come in, you're welcome. Anybody. You want to come in and have your say, do it to it. You want to come in and ask some questions? I don't offer legal advice. I offer citizenship advice and advice on how to stand for something and how to stand up for yourself. You can't do this for anybody else. You can only do it for yourself. Right, yeah, all you can do is educate other people and edify your brothers and sisters with some truth, way, in life. That's all we can do. Anyway, man.
And there's kind of an unspoken thing going on where people seem to be waiting for some politician or some leader or some higher Justice Department or whatever it is that they think that's going to come in and finally recognize how wrong all this shit is and fix it. But if we make enough noise, but that's not going to happen. We have to come at it as individuals, standing on our rights, or and hold them accountable ourselves, or nobody else is going to do it. They have made it clear that they are on a team together, and they're not going to. They enjoy what they have. They enjoy the status quo and the fiction, and they're not going to give it up. They're not going to turn on each other. And the danger becomes when we validate the fiction that because they're wearing costumes that they have the right to commit crimes against us. It's like Hendry says, all men are created equal under the Constitution refers to in the eyes of the law, and that if it's wrong for one man to commit an act against another man, it's wrong for all men to commit that act against another man, including somebody in a costume. So if you see something happen and you remove that costume in your mind and say, is this still just? And the answer is usually going to be no.
Yeah, the answer is always going to be no. This a wise guy, a wise man, and I think it was Marcus Aurelius who said that. He said that laws must bind everyone, high and low, or they're not laws at all. And he was, he was a Roman emperor, and
that's dead on.
He was a hell of a philosopher. But if the laws don't bind everyone, then they're null and void. That's why.
Right. There's no king. There's no special rights for kings or kings' men.
No. Ask King Charles, and then let's clone Cromwell and see how he deals with the situation we got here in America. If anybody's familiar with that story, Cromwell was he was a gentry, and he was like he wasn't minor nobility, but he owned a lot of land, and he was very popular, and he was part of the original Parliament that was instituted in England. Okay, and he saw that the king was an idiot, and he was squandering the treasure of the whole entire kingdom, and he was taking it out on the peasants and the gentry and the minor nobles. Okay, so he wanted to give Parliament more strength. So and it came to open warfare with them, man, and eventually it cost Charles his head. Because
I'll have to read more about that.
Yeah, he wouldn't concede, man. He wouldn't concede a certain amount of his power to the Parliament. It was sort of the same thing that we got going on here, but what we need is an army of Cromwells. If anybody's going to save us, we clone Cromwell. We clone what was the dude's Hannibal, the dude that sacked Rome, or he tried to sack Rome, the Carthaginian. He was the last real freedom fighter that ever walked the earth, as far as I'm concerned. Setting aside the founding fathers, they were more of a brain trust than they were, open combat specialists. Hannibal Barca was a warrior king. I don't even know if I think he was the king of Carthage, or he was the viceroy or something. He was, I don't know. Anyway, listen,
Yeah.
Here's the thing with us. We don't have to do this or that in any kind of order, using any kind of strategy. The beginning is to stop complying. When they ask you for ID, you tell them that I identify as a meat popsicle. That's all you're getting from me. That's
right. And
from me.
If you don't have a proper warrant signed by a magistrate and backed by oath or affirmation of the victim describing their damages,
that's right.
You're not getting my ID. Because I have a right to be secure.
Yeah, have some goddamn legal standing. Don't just come up with me about this interference, obstruction, officer safety, resisting arrest bullshit. Come with a warrant, man. The only power that police have under the Constitution is to serve these proper warrants. That's right, and arrest the criminals named therein. They don't just get to walk up and down. Listen, man, the founders would have never stood for town marshals or county marshals or whatever their police were back then, just going around and knocking on people's doors or pulling them over on their horse and saying, hey, you seem a little bit drunk. They would have never put up with that shit, man.
That's a seizure.
Right, it's a seizure. The founding fathers would be fucking livid.
Oh, so livid.
If we could bring them to 2004, they would be tried as terrorists and shot or stuck in a gas chamber or something.
They'd probably just want to burn us all down or burn it all down because we have failed.
Well, we have, but look, man, we were born under this yoke. We're born into this system. And it looks like we just about lost everybody. It doesn't matter. I still want to rant and rave for a little bit if you're down for it. I really don't care.
Yeah, I'm down.
What our crowd is. It just goes to show that these people don't want to learn anything. But it is kind of late. It's 11 o'clock. I mean, it's early.
Oh, is it? Oh, it's 8 here, yeah.
Yeah, it's 11 here. So you're mountain time, right? Yeah.
I am Pacific.
You're Pacific. Yeah, you're Pacific. You're 3 hours behind. Yeah, well, once you get west of the Mississippi, people are. I just don't, man. I don't understand it. Paul talks about us as slaves.
Right.
Well, look, Gravy. I heard this thing today where this chief of police said that police are held to a higher standard, and my question is, how, where, and when? Prove that shit to me. Prove it to me that it ever happens with cops when they're criminals. It never does. I'll give you a perfect case and example. That asshole that was working the border of Georgia and Florida, and he kept dropping bags of meth in people's cars to get arrests. He did it like to 120 different fucking people, man, and he got 12 years in prison. And he'll probably only serve 6. So where is that higher standard?
I'm
Where
surprised
the
he
fuck?
got that. I'm surprised
Well,
he got that. Yeah.
he got that because the last guy that he did it to, who really busted his ass wide open with a sledgehammer, was connected.
Uh,
His daddy was a rich business owner, and he was also a business owner. But him and his dad and his entire fucking family were completely clean, man. Right? Like they had never done anything wrong. Not like they were elites or nothing. They built a small empire. Okay? And when you
yeah.
build small empires of business, you tend to gravitate powerful people into your circle because they're attracted to the money, and they're attracted to the power, and they're attracted to the shininess, of the country club that you go to or the places that you go on vacation. They're attracted to rich people mainly because they have money. Right. So Jethro, you know what I'm talking about, bro. Yeah. That guy, that fucking cop was a complete scumbag, and he lied his ass off on the stand, and they proved it. They proved that he lied. Just like I can cite hundreds of different instances of these fucking pigs getting away with whatever they want to do. But the reason they get away, listen, if all of those people that he wronged would have written complaints against him if they'd have known better, a sworn statement of criminal action by the accused and the criminal damages caused thereby. I know I'm adding words to it, but I don't care, man, because we have to start being real specific. People just don't understand that unless you become the complaint. I'm not talking about going to the pig shack and filling out a complaint form. That's not how this works. You have to write it in your own words on a piece of paper, or have ChatGPT do it. Or have,
it seems to just be such a foreign, unimaginable idea to people, though. I mean, whether it's Chile or Carolina or Hendry, they can't. They know I'm an ally of theirs, but as many times as I try to suggest that swearing out criminal complaints, it just bounces off.
It just doesn't sink the fuck in, does it? It doesn't sink in, and I don't understand why. Listen, I don't care what your platform is. How you approach this problem, but the answer, and Paul agreed with me with this on the live stream tonight. We have to become complainants. We have to swear out statements of criminal activity with damages caused by this person, and there it goes into a warrant. They can't not write warrants. Or they just continue to create more crimes, and it just stacks up and stacks up and stacks up.
Exactly. And if they do refuse, if they are derelict of duty, if they are colluding, if they're committing more crimes against you, you've just got to carefully, meticulously record each one of them, and they are stacking it up. And eventually, you will have a case that you will, in the end, win. And they've built this huge list of crimes against you.
Absolutely. Well, we have built the case against them.
Right.
They can't do that, or they would. This is why they're coming at Chris and Hendry piecemeal, like one little tiny peck at a time. You know why? Because they're all a bunch of fucking useless, incompetent idiots.
Yeah.
I don't care how much education they have. It's all socialist indoctrination, and it's useless, right?
Right, even the defense lawyers get so indoctrinated. You'd think they'd be the first ones to come out and say, "Hey, where's your victim that my client can face?"
Right,
but they don't do it.
The Sixth Amendment, the Confrontation Clause, the Sixth Amendment. Produce an injured complainant. Produce a person who accuses me of a crime. Where are they? Swear them in. I'm not talking about witnesses. I'm talking about the fucking complainant. Witnesses don't matter. The complainant is what matters. The witnesses just show up in court to convince the judge or the jury.
Right, they're not damaged.
Right, they're not damaged.
Unless they're damaged somehow.
Well, surely, but all that would come in a civil proceeding after the criminal.
Right.
Right, after the criminal case. We don't go straight from being complainants to being, in a civil suit unless the criminal complaint is summed up first. You have to conclude the criminal complaint first.
Right.
But I don't know what the requirements are for dropping a 240 or 242 USC. 242, by the way, people, This is something that I'm going to drill into your brains. It's conspiracy against rights. And that means when one or more person, okay, so you get pulled over for speeding. All right, first of all, they got no warrant. There's no injured complainant with a statement of damages against you that produces a warrant. There has to be a complainant to produce a warrant for you to be stopped, which is the same thing as being seized, the same thing as being arrested, the same thing as being detained, okay? That has to happen. You have to have a warrant or else it's all crimes. And when that backup cop shows up and they go talk to each other, they're automatically guilty. They're automatically guilty of conspiracy under 242 USC. And if you're recording it and you can show that, then, you know, the feds are going to be like, what's your answer? You know, you pulled the guy over. You had no fucking warrant. You don't have those kind of arrest powers. You just don't. The Fourth Amendment is not up for debate. Okay? The Fourth Amendment, everybody close your eyes for a second and imagine the Fourth Amendment as a wedding cake that's inside an impenetrable Death Star force field, man. Nothing can fuck with that Fourth Amendment. Nothing. Terry versus
not
Ohio,
Terry versus Ohio, right. Nothing.
Not PA versus Mims, not any of it, okay? Terry versus Ohio bounces off that force field because it's a decision. It's not a law. Yeah, right. You know, the cops have all these statutes that back up Terry versus Ohio, but it's all illegitimate because it's unconstitutional. It's unconstitutional. Yeah. All right, it's your turn to yell a little bit.
Well, I was just listening to, and I guess it was Hendry or one of his guests there talking about, or his guests there for public safety, talking about how he was looking at all the case law or quote case law, and he saw these conflicting case laws, and he's trying to decide which one. Well, that should just tell you right there. That's an indecipherable clusterfuck. If every court holding and ruling somehow changes the law, you can't possibly operate that way. And we can't just pick and choose. There's case precedent to support either side of almost any case that you can imagine. And so which one are we going to choose? We're going to just choose and hope that if we end up in court, that the jury or judge that they're going to happen to go with that one. No, nothing like that can't possibly work. But it doesn't seem to sink in that is not these holdings and rulings do not change the law every 10 seconds.
Right. You know, like how many times have we ever seen a lawyer say, well, according to shitwad versus butthole decision, or spoiled milk versus rotten ham. No, they don't do that shit in court, man. They only do that kind of stuff when they're arguing with each other about decorum or whatever. They don't do it to help us. They never argue it to help the people, because guess what? Chili's right about he's right about his, and he's a Supreme Court decision, ruling, and opinion scholar. He's not a constitutional scholar. Let's get that right up front. But he's right. Everything that he says is right about the SCOTUS decisions and how horrible they have been for us. He's not wrong about that. He's not wrong about that. But
then he's kind of turning around and validating them at the same time.
Well, it doesn't really matter, because I back up Chili for the same reason that Jonesy and Let's do, because he is serving a purpose. He is putting out some misinformation, and he's forwarding this digital detainment AI crap, which, man, that stuff has always left a bad taste in my mouth, because the law was not written for machines to decide what happens to us. The law was written for men, and when I say men, I mean male and female, men as in the human race, okay? The law is written so that every single real human being can argue for themselves and seek remedy with the Constitution and the Bill of Rights.
Yes, it's written simply for that exact reason.
Right. And we don't need, digital detainment and this AI crap is the same kind of stuff that, Ernst Stavro Blofeld, also known as Klaus Schwab of the WEF, are talking about. Why the fuck is Chili preaching it? They're all organs of human repression. They're bullshit.
Yeah.
And they're
I'm hoping that he'll come around a little bit to the understanding of that, because even if he were to be governor and he were to set up this system that he's talking about to end crime, where everything's being surveilled and whatnot, even if he does it in a way as governor where it's being used in a lawful way, meaning there are no 4A, you're only spotting people when you have a warrant for them, et cetera, a proper warrant for them because they've created a victim. It'll be abused once he's out of office.
It'll be abused as soon as he starts doing it. All these other governors, I'm done calling them governors. They're viceroys, man. They are, they're regional viceroys is what they are. They're not governors. They're not governors. They're just, chief executives that make bad decisions that fuck over we the people, period. And as soon as he puts that in, all the other governors will perk up and they'll start drooling. And then all the pigs will start drooling. And then the FOP will start drooling. Man, this is another way for us to really efficiently get people in prison. And that's what, listen, Terry versus Ohio, give me just 1 second and I'll let you talk.
Go ahead.
Terry versus Ohio has created, and Chili's right about this, it's created this whole prison industry. They have, and Brick Jonesy makes the argument for detention centers. They're called detention centers because that's exactly what the fuck they are. They're Terry versus Ohio detention centers. These are people that we arrested, and we'll just leave them in limbo. Fuck them. Because maybe they're a threat to the public. We'll just make some shit up and keep them in here, and we'll watch our core civic stocks. This is another thing that everybody needs to start looking into is core civic. Okay, that is. It sounds nice, doesn't it? It sounds like maybe they're trying to do something good, and they make it try to sound real good. If you go and look at their stock and their offering and their business model and shit, you'll see that they've made prison. It's the police state, prison state, death state, because they will kill you in there if you cause too much trouble. And they run prisons and they run all these detention centers. I'm fired up about this tonight, man. I'm angry as hell. I mean, and these people running around talking about reasonable, articulate suspicion of hugs and kisses and cuddles and maybe some ice cream sandwiches. They are, man, they serve a purpose, but they're directing their energy in a chaotic manner that doesn't do anybody any good. God bless them. They got balls, man, but they need, like all of them. Everybody who's an auditor has balls. Every single one of them. Yeah. But they've got to start. There has to be a goal. Okay, so you have a certain way that you do it.
Yeah. It's so frustrating. My tongue is tied right now.
No, Jethro is absolutely right. Yeah, we're already there. That's what I'm talking about, dude. We got these Terry versus Ohio anti-Fourth Amendment detention centers. And you know why that happens? Because people comply. They comply. I'm not talking about going live fire and pulling triggers and going ops. Okay, that's off the board. When it's time for that, we'll be talking on shortwave. We won't be on YouTube anymore. We'll be on shortwave getting it together. And there won't be any more argument about how we're going to audit, because auditing will be over. Auditing will be over. It'll be combat, and it'll be gigantic piles of dead bodies in this country. And we don't want that. We don't need it. We don't want it. But we have to do something to dismantle this police state, man. We've got to do it. And the beginning is non-compliance. Listen, these pigs get away with what they get away with because we let those.
Yeah, we allow it.
We let those things slide, and we don't become the complainant. We don't write sworn statements of criminal activity with damages attached that generate into. Look, even if they don't go anywhere, it's still a paper trail. So when you file your 242, the feds will go, Okay, so you know what? He's got a point because we see all these places where he tried to put this stuff in. He tried to make these complaints. He tried to hand them in to the judge, to the prosecutor, and to the sheriff, and to the chief of police, and they all said no. So that's all 14th Amendment violations. That's all we need to proceed with the USC 242 because it's absolutely fucking conspiracy. It's the paper trail that matters. Doesn't matter if we get the cops arrested and the feds actually come and clink them up and throw them in a cell where they belong because they're nothing but wild apes with no morals, flinging shit at everybody they see on the street.
And generally, they're going to double down, triple down, collude. Pretty much, you can count on that for the most part. Well, but yeah, you're making the paper trail.
Right. The paper trail is what matters. That's what any prosecutorial proceeding wants to see is a paper trail. They don't care about who actually got arrested or what they actually were convicted of. They want to see a paper trail. And if they see that you complained about all these things and you have video to back it up, guess what? That's a USC 240 or 242, baby. Maybe multiple ones, including dozens of people that are in that system.
Yeah.
Dozens. You know, and I'm sorry again. I'm fired up, man. I'm fired up as shit tonight, man.
It gets so much uglier too because these detention centers, a lot of them, or at least when you get to the private prisons, they are out for maximizing profits. So the food is inedible, past date of. And they've got raw sewage backing up. I mean, if you actually look into what's going on in these places, they've got no medical care. There was a 19-year-old girl here in Oregon. She had taken a year off of college and met some guy that got her into using H, and she got pulled over in the night wearing no shoes and whatnot, and because she didn't have her headlights on or something. She hands the cop her license, and it's got a little lump of black tar on it or whatever. He takes her to jail. Well, she's in there for days and she's filling out these medical requests forms for help, and it's sad to read. It was in the newspaper, surprisingly, but they published all of her medical request forms, and she's getting worse and worse day by day. She hasn't eaten for 5 or 6 days. She's starting to see color when she closes her eyes, and that's a very bad sign. Finally, some sergeant or some jail guard there took her to a food line on off hours to try to get her some food because she was in such bad condition and she couldn't get anything down. They took her back, threw her in her cell, and she died.
Yeah, that is very sad. Oh, here's Hendry. Hendry's here. What's up, baby, with the curly hair? I love you, man. I can't
love you too, dude.
I cannot believe the shit these people are putting you through, man. It's just fucking ridiculous. Let me get the last word on the private prison thing. Look, prisons are not supposed to be nice, but they're also not supposed to be dungeons. And these detention centers are absolutely fucking dungeons. I've been lucky, man. The two jails that I was ever in were both county jails, and they were small, right? And they were run by the county.
Oh, we lost Henry. Damn it.
Henry bounced on us. Oh, man. Hey, what's up? You have rights, cops have duties. Man, I ain't seen you in a minute.
Henry, come back. Henry, come back. I got to hear from you, buddy.
Yeah, I love that guy. I wish he would come back, but maybe he's got, they got a brand new fresh baby. They got a noob to take care of, so maybe he's busy, man. He's
got the wit too. He's got the wit too. I always talk about.
Yeah, he's good all the way around, man. He's like if you had to roll a character, he's the perfect balanced generalist. You know what
Is he back? Right? Is he back? We'll let him talk immediately if he comes back in here.
Hendry, your Q avatar down here says that your devices are not connected. So you may need to turn something on or turn something off. There we go. Give me a 1, 2, 3, Hendry.
Can't hear you.
Something's not right on your end, bro. I'm sorry, man. You might have to tell it to unmute you, or you may have to change your little sound settings or whatever. I'm running through StreamYards, obviously, so.
Yeah, we want to hear from you.
Absolutely. I want to chew your ear. Gravy makes another really good point, but before I get to that, I want to tie a bow in the prison statements. These private prisons, they have no business being private, and if they do become private, then there needs to be extreme citizen oversight, man. There needs to be inspectors at every single prison every single day that are generated from the private sector.
That's not
Okay?
going to work. We can't have it. Even the founders said, or not the founders in the Constitution, but if you read a lot of their writings, they have said multiple times that as soon as you start allowing private prisons, that's the end of liberty.
I get that, but man, look, I don't know what percentage of our Hendry, are you here, bro?
We can't hear him.
Yeah, we still.
Oh yeah, I'm here.
Hey,
oh, there he is.
There he is. Okay, so my
We
point
can't hear him.
is.
Oh yeah, I'm here. Oh, there he is.
Yeah, we're getting an echo back, man. You want to use your headphones, man.
You still getting the echo?
No.
No, there it is.
Okay, good stuff.
There are a whole lot of people that have died in prison because of the look, man, I would almost rather be in a prison somewhere down in Brazil or fucking Ecuador.
Well, let Hendry get it. Let Hendry get in a little bit of his of what he feels going on here now.
Yeah, right. Like, what the fuck, man? This has got to be nothing but retaliatory. I mean, I know that when you closed, is this the same prosecutor that closed up your case that you worked with the DUI guy?
No, this is not. No, this is a different one. That guy was from Kentucky. This prosecutor is out of Greene County, Indiana.
Oh, okay. Well, that would explain it because, hey, what's up? Wanda Meese is here. Oh, my God.
So it is still kind of a coordinated attack against you, though, don't you think?
Well, that's.
Oh, yes, it certainly is. I mean, I'm going to tell you guys, it's clear to see there's paper trails. Ever since I started, the police have clearly not liked what I've been doing. And there have been other people that have done it in Indiana, but I'm dedicated to Indiana. I stay working in Indiana. And these people went and drafted up laws that, with regards to 25-foot encroachment, you can't encroach within 25 foot if an officer tells you to leave. I mean, it's clearly unconstitutional. What if you need to get within 25 foot of somebody? There's just the most ridiculous law ever. So, but anyways, they made other laws, like the trespassing laws updated. I was trying to get it up and opine on it on my live stream, but I couldn't quite find it. But yeah, they've altered all these kind of laws because, well, and another one is they've made it clear that if you go past a restricted area sign in a public building, you can be arrested for trespass. And it's like, yeah, well, it's like I always went around the state and I would just go behind all these restricted area signs. I wouldn't cause anybody any harm or anything. I wouldn't record any.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they'd be like, oh, you can't be back there. I'd be like, well, what's the law? And they wouldn't have it. Well, now they made a law. It's like the game of tag and you can't win. So, well, fuck it. I'll just make a new rule, and the government so they can do that. Yeah. But I think that, it was always going to happen. I think that I'm fairly prepared to defend myself in court because I just clearly, to be quite honest, I trust like one or two members of the bar and, but I also trust myself to defend myself as much as I possibly can. It's life or death to me. To them, it's just a paycheck that they've already received. So
yeah, they go home to their families at night and forget about it.
Yeah, and I don't mean to insult any members of the defense bar. I mean, some of them are really terrible people, but the people that I work with, the people that I work with now are very good people. The people that I've worked with in the past, I did shoddy vetting of them, but just recently I've worked with a few really good ones. But man, they're expensive, and I really don't care to keep paying them all that money. But yeah, it's a coordinated attack all across the state against me. But I kind of wanted to talk about the whole private prison thing, private versus public prison, and the effects of the private prisons. I think that the private prisons get a bad rep because clearly they're bad. But I think that the public prisons are not any better, and I think that privatizing everything would be a fairly good way of creating a competitive market in a marketplace right now that's completely controlled by government. Or if the private sector wants to get into it, they need express permission from the
That's a
government.
good
So
point. That's a good point. The government is never going to do things right.
That's a damn good point. The government,
They have no motive to do things right when they have no competition.
no, like, back in the day, they used to do a pretty good job with prisons. Yeah, look, man, they're never going to be, a Crown Plaza hotel. Okay, they're never going to be that unless you're in a minimum security federal prison. And then, you got tennis courts and, maybe handball or whatever. And, you have cooking classes, and it's like being at a...
Yeah, well, nowadays it's like that. But back in the day, in most states, I mean, dude, those guys would be out crushing fucking rocks. You know what I mean? It was rough.
They found how many hundreds of bodies behind that Mississippi jail back there?
That's exactly what I was thinking of, was that back in the day, they also could doctor statistics so much more easily, because that was exactly the story I was thinking about. They found literally hundreds of dead bodies behind a jail.
Yeah.
And I wonder how many other jails or how many, facilities that have been long closed down for decades, maybe you go search them, maybe, who knows what you find. I don't know.
Well, absolutely. I'm sure there's many more.
I'll tell you what, man, in Columbus, which is the nearest metro area to me, where I grew up here, look, there used to be the state penitentiary used to be right on the other side of the river, the Scioto River that runs through Columbus. Right on the other side of the river from downtown. Like, seriously, you could walk in like 10 minutes from the prison to the fucking courthouse, and you could get to the federal courthouse in 5 minutes. You could get to the police station in 5 minutes. Imagine this: the Columbus Police Headquarters downtown. I need to go down there and do an audit that fucking place, because I got a grandfather who's in the end of watch room down there. He was a real cop. He was before all this Terry versus Ohio, pussyfied shenanigans. He came down hard on bad guys. He didn't pull people over for tinted window and not wearing their seatbelts or having a bottle in a brown paper bag. They didn't give a shit about that stuff back then, because they were going after real crooks, man. They were going after real bad criminals. Not just drug criminals, but real criminals, man. But anyway, when they tore down that penitentiary, it's all now, how all these urban areas have got these yuppie districts where there's lots of loft apartments, and there's medical treatment facility there, and there's all these restaurants and little shops and all that, and a concert venue and a baseball park, the 15-minute city template, basically. When they were tearing that place down, they had to remediate the soil like 100 feet deep, man, because it was so fucking toxic under that prison. That's what they said. But, was it really bodies under there or what? Who knows? We don't know. We don't know. We don't know that, because they say whatever they want, man. Hendry, man, look, Indiana is people bitch about Illinois being terrible. I have friends that live in Illinois, and they love it. And they're not lefty, liberal, fucking goofball, dingbat, wingnuts.
Oh, yeah. The majority of the state is right, is Republican.
Is Flex there in Indiana, too?
No, Flex is out in Iowa.
Oh, okay.
Iowa, yeah, he's auditing the corn. Yeah, no, man, like Indiana is fucking horrible, man. Horrible. The police are horrible. All the governments are corrupt there, from what I understand. I have a few friends that live in Indiana as well, and they're not surprised by any of this stuff when I talk to them about it. They're like, yeah, man, it's like that here. I'm like, well, why don't you fucking do something, man? You're a real man of conscience with morals. You're a truth, way, and life kind of person. Why don't you do something? It's not my job, man. I'm not into that. Well, you know what, man? You better get into it, or it's going to all be fucking over. Like Paul says, it's going to be all over for you slaves if you don't start listening to what I'm telling you.
So where do you see this going, Craig, with what you've got going on here? Is it just going to continue in a deeper cycle, or?
Well, it's an interesting question. I don't know, man. I mean, because ultimately I'm just one guy, and they are going to do whatever the hell they want. So it's an interesting thing. I wonder if it's really ultimately it's up to the judges, and that's who has the power. But a lot of the times, people are intimidated by the police state, the prosecutor state. Like Doc Savage was saying, quite a ways back, a few decades back, the police state seemed to be focused on things that could almost be considered crime a lot of the time. I mean, but there weren't so many victimless crimes that were incarceratable offenses. And that probably wasn't so intimidating to the judges, but nowadays they can arrest you for almost anything, and if you don't do anything that they can actually arrest you for, they'll just lie and make something up. So to be a judge in today's world it's got to be a difficult situation to be in itself, and so we need real men and women of conscience in there to make the right decisions about the police state just exercising ridiculous authority. And I would even go so far as to say that people have gotten so used to the police state, and it's just everyday involvement in their life, man. People really overestimate the need for these people. And we had the most free, the most prosperous country in the world, and we didn't even have any police in this country when we first became a country.
Yep.
And we were safe as anything. And we barely saw the government. When the government came, it was probably the tax collector, and most people just told them to screw off.
And we didn't see until they wanted to deny the inherent rights of people of color. Then we see the Carolina slave catchers, the first police, and it just progresses from there, where they're trying to take away the rights of people of color and deny them. And now it's just switched to all of us denying all of us our rights.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Actually, this is something that I've been thinking about for a long time. Right? Okay, like, I was a big adherent of Alex Jones until he started getting a little bit sideways about certain things. He was right about the police state and what was coming. He was absolutely fucking dead spot on that. Man. But black people were the litmus test. Okay, let me quote Henry Kissinger here. The actual crime we do immediately. The constitutional crimes are going to take time. That's what he said. And they practiced on the black folks, man.
Yeah.
Everything that they were doing to the black folks, have been doing since after the civil rights movement, right, was all just a test. And because white people accepted it happening against black people, they thought, well, you know what? Let's just go for everyone. Let's put everybody on the plate and just screw them right in the butt. Let's do that. Kennedy, welcome to the show, man. How you doing, bro?
Hello?
Can't hear you. You're low.
I'm low too. You're low.
Yeah, if you can get it up just a little bit, that'd be
He's
great.
like, shit, I'm low?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with mine. I'm gonna have to screw around with my settings here. Thanks for coming, man. I'm glad that everybody is here. I got super fired up today with Paul. And earlier with Kennedy, I was kind of fired up after that, thinking about the bullshit that he's having to deal with. And now it's Hendry. More bullshit for Hendry to deal with. And it's just ridiculous, man. It's ridiculous. It's nonsense, and it's crime. It's criminal, man.
Hendry, what do you think? Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to ask Hendry, like, the stuff that I was reading is nonsense that you put up on there. It just seems like it's a big net to catch every size of fish. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
right.
And that's essentially what they've designed, and that was the intention from the initiation of government in the United States, and it's just grown and grown. And I think I heard some talk of civil disobedience or just outright non-compliance with government decrees and codes. And I think that at some point when they do have kind of a one size fits all when it comes to a crime, no matter what you do, we can fit the crime to it. It's it not only
you're still pretty low, man.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I think it becomes a duty to exercise civil disobedience, especially when crimes when crimes just become so nonviolent and victimless. There's a story that I really find encouraging, and it shows that even from the initiation of the federal government in this country, that the intentions have been malicious and that the actions have been equally as malicious. And if you don't mind, I'll share it. Do you mind if I take about 2 minutes to share this with you? It's very interesting.
Go ahead, man. Go ahead.
So it's about the Whiskey Rebellion. And of course, everybody's taught about the Whiskey Rebellion in school. They're all taught about this. I mean, I looked it up on Google just now. It literally says violent tax protest in the United States. I mean, I don't know if anybody can see it. But this is what they teach you in the schools, and this is what the mainstream will tell you about this. So basically, these people in Massachusetts, I believe, they said, hey, we aren't going to pay these taxes. And the federal government used violence on them. They apprehended them. So basically, Alexander Hamilton, George Washington's Secretary of State, acquired an army of 10,000 mercenaries. And they marched into Massachusetts. They collected all of these people who refused to pay this tax. And they held mock trials for them. And they sentenced them to a hanging. I promise you, they sentenced them to a hanging. So anyways, George Washington hears wind of this, all right, and he travels down. And on the day that they're supposed to be executed, George Washington just looks at him and he goes, well, are you going to pay the tax? And the guys are like, do you think we're going to pay the tax? Well, we just fought a war about this. We're not going to just pay this tax. He'll kill us. George Washington just throws his hands up at the whole thing. He says, all right, release him. And he just travels home. But this is a showing of civil disobedience from the very start, that when a lot of men group together and they say, look, give me liberty or give me death. A lot of the times the government just kind of has to fold. But of course, we're in a situation nowadays where the men who are willing to stand up to the powers that be are few and far between, to say the least.
Yeah, you're not going to. Yeah, you're a little bit better. You're a little bit better now.
Okay.
Yeah, I've read.
What about starting though? Have you? Go ahead.
Let's go ahead and let Ken chime in.
So, Craig, you were saying basically that the government can just make up laws, and the thing about making laws is it's actually really hard. It's basically impossible. So what it is that if you... Okay, are you familiar with Article 6, the Supremacy Clause?
Not just by you saying it. Could you tell me what it is?
Doc, what would be great is if you could just bring it up. But, yeah, what it is that Article 6 in the Constitution says that the law of the land is the United States laws. Okay, so that's amendments. This is high law. This falls under the Supremacy Clause, so it's the highest law. Nothing can possibly come higher than this. Freedom of speech, right to bear arms, all those amendments. And then plus, when the United States Congress, that's the Senate and the House, when they make a law, then that falls under Supremacy Clause 2, as long as it doesn't violate any of your rights. So now, if we look at the 10th Amendment gives rights to states to make laws, right? But in the beginning of it, there's a disclaimer, and it explains the Supremacy Clause again. And it says as long as you're not violating any of the United States laws, then states can make laws. So most of these laws that you were talking about earlier, such as passing one of these signs, they're saying that now you're trespassing. But the actual truth is that law is just null and void because there is not an injured complainant. That's your Fourth Amendment. So you can't be seized without a warrant. The warrant comes from an injured complainant making a sworn statement to the judge. Then the judge finds probable cause, and now you can be seized. And any time that you're seized without that, it's an illegal search and seizure. So it'll say no unreasonable searches or seizures. Well, what's the reason? It's a warrant. It's a warrant every single time. Later on, in the Sixth Amendment, you have a right to face your accuser. So that's going to be like this injured party that signed a sworn statement against you from the Fourth Amendment. Now, later on, you have a confrontation clause, a right to face that accuser. And so what it is that when a federal agent or a state agent says you're committing a crime against the government and we're going to arrest you and stuff and we're going to charge you, well, that might sound all well and good to a layman, but the truth is that you can't be charged without that injured complainant. So it's not victimless crimes shouldn't exist. It's that they don't, because they're null and void. So the 14th Amendment was also created because, again, we have to make this priority. And what does it say? Something like Congress shall make no laws abridging federally protected rights. So that's the Supremacy Clause again, where they're just listing it again. So these courts are bound to Article 6. It says specifically the courts are bound to the laws of the United States. And a lot of times you actually have to remind them that they are bound. You'll go into a courtroom and you'll be filming and they'll say, you can't film. And you'll say, it's the First Amendment, freedom of press. And he'll say, well, yeah, but I make a judge's order or something. Well, that's fine, but it's all null and void because it's repugnant to the Constitution. And that's the wording from.
And if you watch Kennedy's videos, Craig, you'll see he does these things.
Yeah, I do this stuff all the time. I've arrested something like 30 public servants, including a judge, including prosecutors, including filing charges, all sorts of charges.
Right, but how does this work out for you in practice? Do these people kidnap you?
They always agree with me. However, I do have charges coming up, kind of. I don't have a complainant. So all I have to do is a motions hearing, and I just say, I want to face my accuser, and I don't have one. Therefore, I want to move for a dismissal. So, or we'll suppress the warrant first off, okay, because the warrant was issued without a sworn complainant. Okay, so that's not actually a warrant. It might say warrant
that's a memo.
On top of it. Yeah, it's a memo from the judge to the cops. And since there's no injured complainant, then there's no one for me to face in trial or anything like that. So as soon as we do our motions hearing, it's just going to be dismissed. I can't be pursued. They believe that I can, but the truth is I can't. And actually, basically everyone agrees with me. The cops always agree with me. My last video was a cop block. A cop pulled over my neighbor, and it happened right in front of my house. And so I came out, and what do I see? Emergency lights going. What's the emergency? There isn't one. So we're already talking about misuse of emergency lights. I heard the cop go up to the driver and start telling him about not using a blinker or some shit like that. So I knew that he didn't have a warrant to seize this man. So I just asked him for his warrant. And he refused to answer. I asked him to leave because he's creating a disturbance in my neighborhood. He threatened me. And I told him I want a supervisor here. Okay, so they bring in a supervisor, and I explain to him, cops don't determine probable cause. This man needs a warrant to seize this driver. So I just pointed out the fact that this officer isn't a judge. They always agree with me because I'm not making anything up.
Yeah. So Kennedy,
I don't get anything from case precedent either because that's not law. Go ahead.
I agree that case precedent isn't law. And so the Fourth Amendment, so the way that the court sees it is they see that police officers, when they have reasonable suspicion to detain somebody, that the court's going to say that they are allowed to.
No, you're going to...
Except for they're bound to the Constitution.
Yeah, you're just going to suppress that, whatever they came up with, no matter what it is. So
right,
you're saying
but they took an oath to the Constitution, and it says unreasonable searches and seizures.
Right. And
shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation. All right, so and it says all this stuff, but the courts interpret this so broadly, and I'm going to give you an example of it. The way that the courts interpret everything so broadly. So you brought up the 10th Amendment, and I'm a big fan of the 10th Amendment when it comes to, if we're talking about the intended powers of the government. The 10th Amendment was intended to act as board safeguard against a federal exercise of power. The power is not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people, which means that if something isn't delegated to the United States, they can't do it. They don't have a right to do it. That's what the Constitution says.
Hold on a second. I'm not following what you're saying.
Okay. So the Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, enumerate certain powers that the federal government is constitutionally allowed to exercise, because you got to understand, the Constitution is something like a contract between the states. The federal government didn't exist until the states all came together and agreed by a contract, which was the Constitution, that they were going to form this federal government. And so they said, all right, if we're going to, form this federal government to serve our interests, we're going to delegate certain powers to them. All right. So when they delegated the certain powers, they did so in Article 1, Section 8. And then in the 10th Amendment.
Specifically, though, is that so if we could go back to the 10th, can we look at that one? Okay, so the power's not delegated to the United States by the Constitution. So that's things like freedom of speech. That's things like right to bear arms. Stuff like that.
No. That's stuff like regulating. That's stuff like regulating interstate commerce. That was delegated to the United States.
Okay, we need the text, actually. This is not the Constitution we're looking at.
Yeah, it's not the actual text, is it? Let me find it.
No, but that is in essence, that is totally what the 10th Amendment says and means. I mean, that
shit.
Go to Wikipedia and look at text. They're always trying to pretend that their interpretations are what the law is, but it's actually just
no. This is the 10th Amendment. I have it here.
Oh, that's the text?
Yeah. It
okay,
says
so the power's not
here.
delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, or reserved to the states respectively. Now, that's not it. This is
this is it, and this is one of the most.
The 10th Amendment specifically says that states have a right to create laws. That's not here.
No, it doesn't. The 10th Amendment says what it says right in front of you. I promise you that. And the 10th Amendment is one of the most misunderstood amendments of the Constitution because it's been interpreted by the federal government as a non-restrictive element. But it was well understood at the time that it was passed that it was meant to contain the powers of government to what was expressly delegated to it in Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. Right? It delegates certain powers like regulating the weight and measures of constitutional money, which is well understood to be gold and silver, or the right to regulate banks, or the right to regulate interstate commerce. All of this stuff is in Article 1, Section 8. And it's well understood that anything that isn't in Article 1, Section 8, the government can't do, the federal government. All of those rights are then left to the states respectively, or if the Constitution of the state allows it, to the people. Now, the federal government doesn't understand this. All right. So what I'm trying to tell you is that you can have a great understanding of the law, which if you do intend to, I mean, this is a great amendment to start with, is understanding that the states were sovereign entities at the time that the federal government was formed. All right. And this is proof of it right here. All right. So this is a great place to understand where our country was founded. All right. But I'm not saying that our country was founded in anything great. But what I'm saying is that the federal government in Wickard versus Filburn interpreted their powers to encompass a farmer growing crops on his own land.
Hold on a second. Encompass their powers. You're saying a Supreme Court.
Yes, this is what matters, because you understand, you can say, oh, well, that doesn't matter to me. But with the guys with the guns in the room, it's going to matter. I promise you.
Right. You have to tell them what they're going to do. It's the Supreme.
They don't care what you tell them.
They do care. They're bound to it under the Supremacy Clause. So the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution nor prohibited by it to the states are reserved to the states respectively. Okay, so what could possibly apply in that? Well, anything, as long as it's not already United States law. You understand? So we have supremacy clause law, things like First Amendment freedom of press.
So the supremacy clause applies to the Constitution, not to United States law.
Yeah, it does.
No.
Go to the supremacy clause.
The United States Constitution is the supreme law of the land, not the federal government's laws, because the Constitution trumps the federal government's laws, if you understand what I'm saying.
The Constitution is the United States law.
No, the Constitution is a document that formed, and it laid out the powers of the government. It laid out the restrictions that were to be laid on the government, and it laid out the format in which the elections were to be held for the respective.
Okay, here's the supremacy clause. This Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made, or which shall be made under the authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land. So what you just said, that's not true. And
no, it says the United States laws have to be made in pursuance thereof the Constitution.
That's right.
Law
the
Constitution.
You just said it. You just said it.
So it shall be the supreme law of the land. So Article 6 is saying that this Constitution and the laws of the United States, that's federal law, are the supreme law of the land. So if someone cites to you case precedent, then that's fine as long as it doesn't have some sort of amendment that supersedes any rules, orders, policies, federal or state laws, or anything else. Anything has got to be subservient to the supreme law of the land, which is this Constitution and the laws of the United States. Okay, scroll down a little bit. And the judges in every state shall be bound thereby. Anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary, notwithstanding. What they're saying.
Notice how it says things contrary to the Constitution, not things contrary to federal law.
Yeah, that's true, because that's where
it's because the Constitution is meant to restrict the powers. The laws are meant to restrict the people. But if the laws violate the Constitution, according to this, they're null and void. But what I'm trying to tell you is that the branch of government that has been tasked with interpreting the English language that's written in the Constitution interprets things in such a way that the federal government is allowed to do anything.
Well, no, the judges, look, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby to the
But the Supreme Court would let them get away with it. I mean, you understand that. The Supreme Court gives them absolute immunity. They say that they're not bound to anything because there's no punishment for them.
But no, first off, there is a punishment. There's all sorts of crimes. Things like conspiracy against rights, things like deprivation of rights under color of law, things like treason, things like domestic terrorism. There are laws.
You ever heard of a federal prosecutor taking up a 1983 criminal case against a judicial official?
It doesn't matter what you've heard, because the thing is, you've got to make it happen or else it's not going to happen. They will.
And I'm telling you, you ain't going to make it happen.
Oh, yeah? You want to bet some money?
I would bet you some money.
Okay, $1,000. I don't go to trial.
Well, I think, a trial on what? On a civil case?
No, I have a drug charge, drug war stuff. It's a state charge. But I have federal rights.
No.
So drugs fall under First Amendment freedom of religion. They also fall under my right to be secure in my person and my property. Also, I don't have a complainant, so no warrant may issue, even though I have been seized. No warrant may issue. all I have to do, truly, is you just do motions to suppress this stuff, and then you got to cite things like, hey, according to the Supremacy Clause, the First Amendment reigns supreme here. Freedom of religion. Okay? And so now, because we know that there's a federal law saying that I can exercise my religion however I want, then there's a state charge saying that I cannot exercise my religion however I see fit, then the state law is null and void. So, and this is all throughout the law. It's things like Marbury v. Madison. Anything repugnant to the Constitution is null and void, and that's up to you.
Okay.
You have to be the one that does these motions. Or you can tell your lawyer, I want a motion to, for instance, dude, if you get to trial and you don't have a complainant sitting there in the courtroom, all you have to do is invoke your Sixth Amendment Confrontation Clause. You want to face your accuser, you don't have one. They'll have a cop sitting there. The cop's a witness. So what's going on is that no one, including the auditing community, really understands procedural law. So people are thinking that they're actually getting charged with crimes where it's not possible to charge you. It's just that they expect you to never object. Because once you object, they're bound to the laws of the United States. And you're going to have to make them do it by at least, by telling them the Supremacy Clause, telling them high law versus, this is a subservient state law and it violates this, this, and this, and this. So have I even been accused of a crime? No, I've been accused of something that's null and void. Do you kind of, you don't have to agree with me, Jew.
I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I'm inclined to agree with you, but I'm just saying that the people who control the people with the guns won't agree. That you can say that they're bound all you want, but you understand, dude, I mean, it wasn't 10 years after the Bill of Rights was passed that the Alien and Sedition Acts were being enforced. And by the way, those never got struck down in a court of law. I mean, the judges aren't dude, people challenged him in court too, by the way. They lost in appellate court.
I would be highly surprised if anyone did a fair job at actually invoking their rights. Like Terry v. Ohio. Dude, Terry did a shit job.
It was in 1798. I mean, like 2 state governments literally suppressed the federal law, invoking their own sovereign rights as states, saying that, hey, look, we created the federal government, and if we choose that, the federal government has exceeded its value to us, we'll tell you that you're not allowed to operate within our state borders. It was in 1798, the Kentucky and Virginia resolutions, respectively, James Madison and Thomas Jefferson passed them and invoked their states' rights against the federal government's laws. But what I'm trying to tell you is that the federal government, the courts, they interpret everything so broadly that even if you try to invoke those rights, even if you spell it out for them, like literally letter for letter, they're going to look at you. They're going to look at the prosecutor. The prosecutor and the judge are going to laugh. They're going to say, oh, look at this layman. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And you could sit there and you could be right all day long. You could be right until you're red in the face. And they are going to care. They're going to look at the cops and they're going to say, hey, buddy, throw this guy in a cage. And you can try to make them do whatever you want. But unless you've got a few guys behind you with AR-15s that are on your side, good fucking luck. That's the reality. And I understand. I'm inclined to agree with you about your interpretation of needing a victim to face your accuser. I'm with you in your interpretation that they are supposed to be bound by the law, but in practice, government is never that. In practice, government looks good on paper, but they end up in mass incarcerations and mass deaths. That's what it always ends up with.
What about these people that get out on appeals then?
Well, these people that get out on appeals serve time in jail, and most of them don't appeal it. So unless you appeal it, you don't get out.
They're doing the same thing here, though, Craig. When you're playing their game and citing the case law and whatnot, they're still doing the same thing that you're describing.
Yeah, I mean, look, ultimately that is all and look what I'm doing by playing their game and luckily I was able to get some audio footage and show people that I beat them at their own game. And, you know, that's ultimately for the public to decide, I think. But, you know, I think that I show that they're corrupt, but that's all that I can do. You know, you can't beat these people.
You can prove it. You can prove that they're corrupt. And the way you do that is with real laws. And you don't want to stand under anything that's not actually a law. So, like, you do not want to let them start saying reasonable articulable suspicion and convict you on it. You're going to object to stuff like that. Because you're going to say, RAS is not the law is the Fourth Amendment, right? Under the Supremacy Clause, the law is the Fourth Amendment, for sure. The Fourth Amendment wasn't found unconstitutional by Terry v. Ohio.
No.
It's not possible. And so that means that Terry v. Ohio holds no legal authority. There's no...
But it does.
No, it doesn't. You are the one that will allow it to pass. Okay? And when you do that, then yes, basically anything is going to happen to you. But
can I add to this
conversation?
Go ahead. Before bringing up the Supremacy Clause, which is Article 6, you could bring up Article 4, Section 4. It says the word protect and guarantee in the article. It says that they have to guarantee a Republican form of government. That way, once you establish that they have to guarantee a Republican form of government, then you bring up the Constitution, Article 6, the Supremacy Clause. And that's how you guarantee that they're supposed to serve and protect, because Article 4, Article 4 is backed by the Supremacy Clause, and then Supremacy Clause is backed by Article 4. Then under the 10th Amendment, it says the states get powers, and then they are somehow magically interpreting the word powers for that they get to create laws for somehow. But
yeah, they can create laws.
Well, the Ninth Amendment. Yeah, but what I want to add to is that the Ninth Amendment goes before the 10th Amendment, and that the 10th Amendment's all well to do for the states. They can make as many laws as they want, as long as those laws are not repugnant to any right enumerated, or even those rights that are not enumerated. That's Article 9 or Section That's Amendment 9. You know, they can't be used. Any of the other amendments in the Constitution cannot be used to deny or disparage any of the other amendments in the Constitution. So,
14th. Yeah, that's the 14th.
No, that's the 9th. The 9th is the one that cancels out the 10th, only if the 10th is used for a limiting purpose. Yeah,
is that you have more rights than what's listed.
We'll bring it up for us.
Yeah, that is true. The 9th does say that, but
the 14th is what you're saying, though, and it's true. That's true.
The 9th.
I'm pretty sure.
Can we bring it up?
Yeah.
Can we bring up the 9th Amendment? Yeah. This is some of my favorite stuff right here, you guys. You guys are talking about some stuff that's some of my favorite.
Yeah, give me a second, man.
The 9th Amendment reads, the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. So just saying that, look, all that they're saying is, look, just because we put some rights in the Bill of Rights doesn't mean that these are the only rights that people have.
Exactly.
Like, there are more of them. They just not enumerated here.
Yeah.
And I would argue that
it also says that the 10th Amendment, which is one of the enumerated rights in the Constitution, cannot be used to deny or disparage any of the other rights. So when they pull up to your car and they're like, you're looking a little suspicious, we're going to have to ask you to step out. Under MIMS, we can ask you to step out, and you have to, and all this stuff. But then that's when you say, are you trying to say that the 10th Amendment grants the states rights to make laws? And one of the little statutes they made under the 10th Amendment was that you could ask me out of my car anytime you want to.
No,
that's the 10th Amendment
doesn't grant the states.
No, the 10th Amendment
doesn't grant the states the rights to make laws.
No, he's putting together a point, I think. So, yeah, if they say that we have a state law, then you're just going to say, well, actually, my my right is the right to be secure in my person. Unless you have a warrant, that's the Fourth Amendment. It's the law. We know it's the law because of the Supremacy Clause.
It's what
But,
they do. They pull you over and you're like, wait a second. I don't even need a driver's license or a registration to use my property and move in my property. And they say, well, while I swore an oath to the Constitution and the oath of this state, or the Constitution of this state, I'm employed by this state. So today I'm going to be exercising the upholding the Constitution of the state. And then they proceed to talk you out of your rights, right? But
since
that's
there's
using
a
the 10th to take away a right, which is the 4th. And you can't, under the 9th Amendment, you cannot use the 10th to take away the 4th. Deny or disparage. You can't use under the 9th Amendment, you cannot use the 10th Amendment to deny or disparage the 4th Amendment. That's all I'm saying.
So we
no matter what state law they have.
Repeated about 10 times.
Yeah,
or at least
basically, right.
Yeah.
But I'm just talking about the things that back up these things that you guys were saying,
Right.
But anyways.
That's creative thinking, dude.
No, I agree. I agree with what you're saying in principle. Yeah, for sure. It's null and void. Anything that's repugnant to the Constitution is null and void. That's Marbury v. Madison. That's not a law. The Supremacy Clause is the law. But Marbury v. Madison interpreted the Supremacy Clause, and so they say anything repugnant to the Constitution is null and void. And we agree with that same thinking because that's what we read in the Supremacy Clause. And then in the 14th Amendment, where it says Congress shall make no laws abridging federally protected rights, maybe we should bring that one up and get the exact text.
The 4th Amendment?
14th.
14th.
Oh,
It's good.
It's one of the slave amendments.
The 4th Amendment. So the reason that people can, the reason that a cop can detain you in the eyes of the state. See, this is the thing.
Hold on, Craig. The term seize. The term is seize. There's no detain.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Exactly.
the reason that they can seize you is because they say they have reason. They say they have reasonable suspicion that you committed a crime.
Look,
but the whole
hold on, man. The reason is a warrant. It explains it. Yeah, it explains it. It says, first off, the first part is it says the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects. Next, it says it explains the warrant and how you get a warrant with an injured complainant, a sworn statement.
It says this. This is what it says.
Then it
the
says
right
no.
of
Hold
the
on a second. And then it says no unreasonable seizure. So right after describing the reason.
No.
Yeah, it's in plain English. It's right in front of you.
Yeah, it's right in front of me, and you're wrong. It says the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated.
Okay.
And then it goes on to say that no warrants shall issue, but upon probable cause. Now, when was the last time you saw a court order a warrant on reasonable suspicion? They do all the time, don't get me wrong. But look, they say it's probable cause. All right?
Well, a judge will determine probable cause.
But an officer can determine a reasonable suspicion. An officer can determine reasonable suspicion under their laws. This is why government's bad. This is why I'm an anarchist.
Yeah,
now, I can argue constitutional law till I'm red in the face.
But hold on, though. They have these provisions in the Constitution for this stuff, and the thing about it is that they've already covered it. I lost track of where I was
in front of us. Go back to go back to
the Fourth Amendment.
We need to deal with that.
The probable cause is the preponderances of fact. That they have to meet like 3 to 5 preponderances of fact to be reasonable. So one of them is intent. One of them is the body of proof.
It's explaining right here that what you need is a warrant. So you're secure unless there's a warrant. It tells you how to get a warrant, and now go down. So if you cannot be seized without a warrant because it's unreasonable at the first part of this,
they've been doing wrong. They've been doing wrong, you guys. We know that.
The right of the people to be secure in that person's house's papers and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated. So obviously we have to have a reason. And what's that reason? It's called a warrant. A judge determines it.
Hey, Kennedy, what happens if somebody?
I agree.
What happens if somebody kills somebody? Do we wait until we get a warrant, or do we seize them on site?
Well,
We wait till we get a warrant, because the warrant, unless they're caught in the act. Unless they're caught in the act.
But Craig, if
No.
it's self-defense.
Okay, hold on. Hold on. If they're caught in the act, is that a
that's
warrant
irrelevant.
or is that a reason?
no, it's irrelevant. So here's
It's
what's going on.
irrelevant. Well, no.
No,
hold
caught
on,
in the
it's
act
not irrelevant.
creates a defense. Caught in the act
No.
creates a defense.
No,
So it's
caught in
another.
the
It
act-
goes on to another thing.
No, guys, stop. Just stop for a minute, okay? Let me talk.
You've been talking, Kennedy. Don't
Yeah.
worry.
Okay, so let me explain this to you. These laws are our protection that we have with our government. Now, if you see someone murder someone, you could pull out your gun and shoot them, bud.
What if
The
you
right
see
to
somebody
defense.
burgle? What if you see
Well,
somebody burgle somebody?
Then whatever your rights are, then you can do.
You have the right to
But
stop
the
that person by
government-
any means necessary.
But the government, they only are allowed to do what's in the law, okay?
So if a government
they need a
agent-
warrant. They need a warrant.
If I
So
see
if a
somebody
government
burglar in my
agent sees
neighbor's house,
somebody-
I would,
so if a government agent sees somebody trespassing or
He doesn't know any.
government
Squatting.
agents don't have
Stop.
the rights that we have. Government
He's
agents
not
don't have the rights that
qualified.
we have.
He's not qualified to
my
determine a crime.
We have the right to defense. So if our neighbor is getting robbed, I would first say, "Hey, did my neighbor allow you to be in their house?" And they say, if they couldn't come up with an answer or even know my neighbor's name, then I would be, you need to freeze right there and stop what you're doing. Come on outside if you can. If you can't, stay right there. Don't move. You see what I'm saying? I would stop the
what
neighbor.
What
but
if we don't see it? What if like none of the neighbors
then,
see it?
then,
What if the
then we have
government
to.
agent?
Then that's
Hold
when
on.
we have to
Hold on,
do
let
an
me
investigation
talk.
and do
Guys,
reason.
everybody else
preponderance of the
gets to
doubt.
talk until conclusion, until me, and then I get told to cut off.
They already have this shit in place. They're just
Good.
they're just not using it right. Is all I'm saying.
Guys, all I'm trying to say is your argument is inconsistent here. All right.
No.
Is a government agent able to arrest somebody if they see so let's say
No.
they see
No.
somebody walking out of your neighbor's house
No.
with a
The
flat
answer's
screen
no.
TV. Hold on. No, Kennedy, you let me talk. I let you talk. Now you let me talk. What if a government agent sees somebody walking out of your neighbor's house with a flat screen TV? All right. Do they have the right to go up and ask them a question? Hey, or do they have to go and ask for a warrant before they can even talk to the guy? And now
They
the
have to
guy's
go and
getting
get
away.
a warrant. They have to go get a
You
warrant.
got to get a warrant, but
Because
he
Craig,
doesn't-
what we see is the
Hold on,
cops
he's
showing
gone.
up and
No, I'm
That's
not.
okay.
I'm plugging my phone in.
Oh,
we see the cops showing up and arresting and brutalizing the victim in many cases because they're not qualified to determine what a crime is. Even if, like Kennedy said, even if they see two people shooting at each other, they don't know who the victim is, who's the aggressor, and who's defending themselves.
I really hate that we even have to have these conversations again in history when the founding fathers, prior to writing the independence, they had to deal with a bunch of stuff for many centuries. When they got called to court, they didn't even have to be guilty, but they had their guts pulled out and their genitals chopped off, and then they got strung up, and it was called drawn and quartered. But then that stuff happened years and years and years and years until they said, wait, we got to have a better way than this crap. And that's when the founding fathers philosophized, like we're doing right now, about these exact things. And they said, they are going into our homes without warrant, without reason. They're just walking right into our homes and just slapping our mothers. We're tired of this crap. And then, so all of this stuff has already been decided. All of these things are already provisions in law, but they're just not nobody's regulating these things upon the government at this time. So nobody's even looking up for these regulations.
I'll
Nobody's
have to
studying.
dissent from that opinion, man. The government was formed by these people that we call the founding fathers, but it was well understood by them what they were creating. Look, the federal
Well,
government.
yeah,
was
because they
formed-
philosophized about it, for years.
Yeah,
They knew exactly what they were creating.
They fought a war against a tyrannical government. They had the Articles of Confederation. There were 13 independent states.
Okay.
There were sovereign entities.
real quick, before we get into like history, let's talk about the fact that
he's going great.
You don't know the difference. So you're a state agent and you see someone walking out with a TV. You don't know if that guy is moving his belongings. You don't know if he sold his TV to someone. You don't know anything until you have a sworn statement, someone that's put it on their skin. I promise a crime was committed. I'm the victim. I'm an injured complainant.
Exactly.
That goes to a judge. How do you know the difference between a lawful execution and an execution? You don't.
Why can't you just ask them?
One of the things that the forefathers said was that they would rather have 400 criminals go free than have one innocent man held without probable cause.
You need a sworn statement, man, to get over any of that. That's what, bro, it's called a warrant, which means a reason.
There's 5 preponderances of fact. One of them is intent. A sworn
statement, a admission, or, as the courts have ruled, according to the Fourth Amendment, reasonable suspicion satisfies the reasonable clause of the Fourth Amendment. This is what I'm trying to tell you. But listen, there's a misconception that the Constitution. No, let me talk. There's a misconception the Constitution was made to limit the government or to create these rights of the people. It absolutely wasn't. The Constitutional Convention was held. About 112 delegates were invited. And I think there was like 54 to 60 signatures on the Constitution because over half of them left because they said this is evil, this is illegal. We weren't commissioned to do this in the first place. And Patrick Henry, for one, can be quoted as saying, in regards to the Constitutional Convention, I smell a rat. They didn't show up because it was well understood that Alexander Hamilton and Robert Morris had colluded to organize this convention to out from the feet of the federal government at the time, whether the Articles of Confederation, to form a new government that would expand the powers of government far beyond what they were already. And they would do it under the guise of national security.
These were conversations that were happening during a growing country. So they had just written some of these things. They had just barely implemented some of these things. So Patrick Henry and all those guys are great men on an opposing side of some others that are also great men. But they were all talking about a growing country here, that things had just barely been implemented at this time. So nothing was perfect. And then I want to add that the only problem with the Constitution is that they're not regulating themselves. They're not policing themselves. They're not running it right. The Constitution is getting misused by the cops and the government right now. But at the same time, there was a bunch of more stuff that was implemented that is not going on. So,
listen, all that really matters is that when you're talking about your right to be secure in your person, Craig, you're using words that aren't in the Constitution, man. Like
reasonable is in the Constitution.
Reasonable suspicion is not in the Constitution, though.
No, suspicion isn't in the Constitution, but you got to have a reason.
Yeah, the reason's a warrant.
Craig was using stuff that was happening back then and true stuff that was happening. We've learned this stuff in history class when we're growing up, even to a certain extent. Patrick Henry and all these guys.
Subjective. When they formed the government, they made this kind of stuff subjective, and they made it subjective to themselves.
Hold on. The reasoning is the preponderances of fact that based whether a crime had been committed. These are what determines the reasonableness of what. No. Yeah, because you have to have intent. You have to have the evidence. Yeah, you have to take all these preponderances to a judge and then get a warrant.
Stop, dude.
Obtain a warrant.
Stop. What do you even think the purpose of a warrant is? The warrant is a reason to search or seize you. If it's not that, then what the hell is it?
Hold on, Kennedy. I agree.
It is, but you have to. Reason. There's another reason.
You have to have the preponderance of fact to take to the judge to prove that a crime has been committed.
That's not in the law, man. I want you to.
That's how you get a warrant. You have to take facts to a judge.
All right, everybody, listen up. I'm going to unmute Hendry. He's going to have his say, and then as long as we can follow some kind of form of etiquette where we're not interrupting each other, we're going to have a great conversation. But right now, come on, man. You guys got to take turns. Hendry, go.
Yeah. So this whole idea that they're bound to anything, they created a federal government. They set the federal government up to where certain people get to interpret those rules. Those rules are the judges. The judges get to interpret it. Our interpretation is, as a matter of law, to the people with guns, and I'm talking about the army of 1 million men that are known as police officers. Those people don't care what we think. They care what the judges think. They're going to kill you. They're going to
agree with that.
This is what's going to happen. I'm talking in terms of reality. Now, people can talk in terms of what should happen, what should be happening. It ain't gonna fucking happen. All right. Now, I want to get back to what's real. Okay, what's real is the same generation that passed the Bill of Rights, the same generation that authored the Bill of Rights and passed it through a fucking federal Congress. The same fucking generation passed the Alien and Sedition Acts. Now, in case anybody here isn't familiar, the Alien and Sedition Acts made it a crime, a jailable offense or a finable offense up to $10,000, which in the day was an excessive amount of money, to speak seditiously about the Congress of the United States of America or the president. And they conveniently left out the vice president, Thomas Jefferson. If you could criticize him all day, you wouldn't have a problem. But they made sure that you couldn't criticize the president, John Adams, or the Congress, who was chock full of members who passed the Bill of Rights. Now, the idea that these people created this document or any of these documents to limit themselves and to give the people power, that's a fucking joke, right? I would suggest reading a book called Conceived in Liberty, Volume 5. It's a book by Dr. Murray Rothbard. He's a genius, and he's an incredible historian and economist. And he wrote this book with text right out of James Madison's notes from the Constitutional Convention. And it shows conclusively that these people created this document to form this federal government with the express intent to make their powers greater, to limit the powers of the people, and to create a mercantile system that was instituted in Britain in the United States. That was the goal. Now, anybody who doesn't understand that needs to read that book, Conceived in Liberty, because it's not little old Craig Hendry talking about it. It's an intellectual giant in Murray and Rothbard writing, and he's appreciated by scholars all around the world. So that being said, I'll give back my time.
I want all of our conversations. Are you there?
Your volume is down again, Kennedy.
Mm-hmm.
Is that any better?
Yeah, that's great, man. That's great.
Oh, okay. I want everyone's conversation to be specifically from the Constitution, because what that's going to do is it's going to stop all these tricks that we've fallen for. The federal government needed more power, sure. That you're not going to understand history unless you were there, and even more so, you'd have to be in the right position to actually understand it, even if you lived then. You're not going to understand context reading out of some book. I promise you, man. Though I am the author of Treason, and I tried to do my best to bring this all back to reality, so that we're not talking about Supreme Court.
We know parts of history. That's what Craig Henry is talking about, a part of history.
That's just a belief.
No, we do.
No, you don't.
We know what is written. We know we know parts of written history.
Dude, oh yeah. Tell me what's the official history of what just happened the other day with fucking Red Hat?
I'm not getting into that part.
Exactly. So you're going to tell me that something hundreds of years ago that you know about? Bullshit.
No, we only know what we've been told.
Exactly.
But we know it as that. Okay,
anarchy isn't the right answer, bro. I know what you're coming from.
I know.
Most of it. Hold on, I'm talking to Craig. So anarchy is where you don't have anybody in charge, and bro, most of that's great.
No, that's not true. That's ridiculous.
No rulers is what anarchy is.
The Constitution is basically anarchy.
No coercive rulers. You would still have rulers. People need rulers to organize their labor because they're inefficient. People need rulers so that they can, rent housing. People need there's a lot of natural hierarchies that form absent government. I mean, the idea that there would be no hierarchy to organize stuff is ridiculous.
They philosophized this stuff for thousands of years, and they came up with the United States Constitution.
Bro,
it's just the best. It's just the best at this time that we know about. It needs to be reformed, and it's the next to the it was founded off of the Magna Carta, but these are thousands of years of philosophizing a better way to treat people. The Constitution is basically anarchy, okay? The union is the ones that are supposed to be policed and regulated, not the free people. The nation is comprised of the free people of the United States. They are not supposed to be policed. The only thing they're subjected to is law. If they do damage to, or if they do harm to person or property with intent, they have committed a crime, and then they are not subjected to anarchy anymore. They're not a free man any longer. They've actually committed a crime. So that's why